The dragon sleeps, but the legend is awake forever. Autumn 1964, Oakland, California. Bruce Lee was 24 years old. He was fast, arrogant, and dangerous. He had just opened his second martial arts institute, but unlike every other kung fu master in America, Bruce Lee had a rule that was considered a crime by his own people. He hung a sign on his door that essentially said, "Everyone is welcome." For centuries, the Chinese masters believed that kung fu was a sacred secret. It was a weapon belonging to China. Teaching these deadly secrets to guilos, foreign devils, white men, black men, was considered treason. They believed that if you gave the weapon to the enemy, they would eventually use it against you. Bruce Lee didn't care. He looked at the old masters and called them dry land swimmers. He said they were stuck in the past, practicing forms that didn't work in a real street fight. He openly mocked them. He taught Steve McQueen. He taught James Coburn. He was selling the family secrets to Hollywood. The elders of San Francisco's Chinatown had seen enough. They held a meeting. They decided that this arrogant kid needed to be stopped, not asked nicely, stopped. One afternoon, a group of men arrived at Bruce's school on Broadway Avenue. They weren't students, they were messengers from the Grand Masters. They handed Bruce an ornate scroll. It looked like something out of a movie, but the message inside was a direct threat. It was an ultimatum. Stop teaching the non-Chinese immediately or accept a challenge match. In the world of martial arts, a challenge match isn't a sparring session. It's a fight for dominance. No protective gear, no rounds, no rules. The winner dictates the terms. The loser shuts down his school and leaves town in shame. Bruce Lee read the scroll. Most men would have been terrified. The Chinatown Mafia and the martial arts community were powerful enemies. But Bruce just smiled. He looked at the messengers and said, "I'll teach whoever I want. If you want to stop me, send your best fighter." He didn't know it yet, but he had just signed a contract for the most controversial fight of his life. He thought he was invincible. He thought he would crush whoever they sent. But the man they were sending wasn't a street thug. He was a Shaolin monk, a prodigy, a man who was rumored to have the power of the Iron Palm. His name was Wong Jack Man, and he was coming to Oakland not to score points, but to break the dragon. Who was Wong Jack Man? If Bruce Lee was fire, Wong Jack Man was water. Bruce was loud, brash, and aggressive. Wong was quiet, traditional, and terrifyingly disciplined. He had recently arrived in San Francisco from Hong Kong, and his reputation preceded him. He was a master of Northern Shaolin Kung Fu. Legends about him were whispered across Chinatown. They said he had mastered the internal arts. They said he could break a stack of bricks without screaming. They said his stamina was limitless. He didn't want fame. He didn't want movies. He was a warrior monk dedicated to preserving the purity of Chinese culture. To him, Bruce Lee wasn't a revolutionary. He was a traitor, a disrespectful child who needed to be disciplined. December 1964. The day of the fight arrived. It wasn't in a ring. It wasn't in a stadium. It was in Bruce Lee's small gym in Oakland. Wong Jack Man arrived with an entourage of 6 men, representatives from the clans, there to witness the punishment. They wore traditional suits. They looked like judges at an execution. Inside the gym, the atmosphere was suffocating. There was Bruce, and there was his wife, Linda Lee. Linda was 8 months pregnant with their son, Brandon. She sat in the corner, terrified, watching as these menacing men filled the room. Wong Jack Man stepped forward. He produced a set of rules. He wanted a traditional match. No hitting the eyes, no kicking the groin. Rounds, points, respect. Bruce Lee looked at the rules and laughed. He was a street fighter from Hong Kong. He didn't believe in points. He told Wong, "No rules, no rounds. We fight until one of us can't stand up, until one of us quits." The room went silent. This wasn't a sparring match anymore. Bruce had just turned it into a death match. Wong Jack Man hesitated, then nodded. He assumed his stance, classic, upright, graceful. Bruce Lee dropped into his stance, low, aggressive, modern. Linda held her breath. The men crossed their arms. The door was locked from the inside. There were no cameras to record history, just two men representing two different worlds about to collide. Bruce Lee narrowed his eyes. The dragon was ready to strike, but he had no idea that this fight would haunt him for the rest of his life. The silence broke instantly. Bruce Lee didn't wait. He didn't bow. He exploded forward like a cannonball. His plan was simple: overwhelm Wong Jack Man with a flurry of chain punches, the signature move of Wing Chun Kung Fu. He wanted to end this in 10 seconds. He wanted to humiliate the master. But Wong Jack Man wasn't a static target. He was a master of Northern Shaolin, a style famous for its long-range techniques and fluid movement. As Bruce lunged forward, Wong didn't block. He vanished. He stepped back, twisted his body, and used his superior reach to keep the dragon at bay. For the first minute, the small gym turned into a chaotic dance. Bruce was furious. He was swinging wildly, trying to close the distance, but he was hitting nothing but air. Wong was too elusive. He was using his legs, keeping Bruce away, waiting for the young dragon to tire himself out. This wasn't the movie fight Bruce had imagined. It was ugly, it was messy, and for the first time in his life, Bruce Lee felt something he despised: fatigue. He was gasping for air. His traditional Wing Chun stance was limiting his movement. He felt trapped in his own style. Realizing that his scientific kung fu wasn't working, Bruce Lee made a split-second decision. He abandoned the style. He abandoned the rules completely. He stopped being a martial artist and became a street brawler. He roared and charged again. This time, he didn't care about form. He threw everything he had. According to Linda Lee, who was watching in horror from the corner, Bruce finally managed to trap Wong against the wall. The fight turned brutal. Wong Jack Man, realizing he was cornered, allegedly tried to turn and run. This is the most controversial moment of the entire battle. Did a Shaolin master really try to flee, or was he just repositioning? Bruce didn't care. He chased him. Witnesses describe a frantic scene: the future superstar of Hollywood chasing a monk around a tiny room, punching him in the back of the head, screaming in Cantonese. It wasn't honorable. It was desperate. Finally, Bruce tackled Wong to the floor. He pinned him down, raising his fist for a final devastating blow. His knuckles were white. His eyes were wild with adrenaline. He shouted in Chinese, "Do you yield? Do you give up?" Wong Jack Man, pinned under the weight of the furious dragon, had no choice. He whispered, "I yield." Bruce stood up, but there was no victory lap. There was no cheering. The room was dead silent. The heavy smell of sweat and fear hung in the air. Bruce Lee was trembling, not from excitement, but from exhaustion. He had won the fight, yes, the threat was gone. He could keep his school open, but as he looked at his shaking hands, he realized something that terrified him. The fight had lasted 3 minutes. In his mind, it should have taken 3 seconds. He was the fittest man alive, yet he was winded, sloppy, and nearly failed. While the Chinatown elders dragged their defeated master out of the door, Bruce didn't feel like a winner. He felt like a failure. He collapsed onto a bench, his chest heaving, sweat pouring down his face. Linda ran to him, asking if he was okay. Bruce looked at her, his eyes filled with a dark realization. "My style," he gasped. "It doesn't work. It's too slow. I need to change everything." That messy, ugly, secret fight in Oakland didn't just save his school, it killed the old Bruce Lee. And from the ashes of that chaotic afternoon, a new philosophy was about to be born. A philosophy that would change the world of combat forever. Jeet Kune Do. But while Bruce was reinventing himself, the rumors about what really happened in that room began to spread, and the story Wong Jack Man told was very different. The fight was over. The door was unlocked, but the war was just beginning. In the days following the duel, two completely different versions of history began to circulate through San Francisco, and this is where the mystery deepens. Bruce Lee's camp claimed total victory. In an interview with Black Belt magazine, Bruce arrogantly described the fight as a slaughter. He said he chased Wong Jack Man like a frightened rabbit and forced him to surrender in 3 minutes. To Bruce, it was proof that traditional kung fu was dead. But Wong Jack Man told a very different story. Outraged by Bruce's bragging, Wong did something unexpected. He went to the largest Chinese newspaper in San Francisco, the Pacific Weekly, and published a front-page article. In his version, the fight didn't last 3 minutes, it lasted 20 minutes. He claimed that Bruce Lee was fighting dirty, attempting to gouge his eyes, aiming for the throat, and kicking the groin. Wong stated that he spent most of the fight holding back, trying not to permanently injure the young, reckless bully. He ended his article with a bombshell, a public challenge for a rematch, anywhere, anytime, open to the public. Bruce Lee never answered the challenge. He never stepped into a ring with Wong Jack Man again. Why? Was he afraid the truth would come out? Or did he simply feel he had nothing left to prove? Regardless of who was telling the truth, one thing is undeniable. The fight broke Bruce Lee. He fell into a deep depression. He sat in his gym for hours, staring at his hands. He told his wife, Linda, "I won, but the way I won was wrong. If I had been fighting a real killer, I might be dead." This realization triggered the greatest revolution in martial arts history. Bruce Lee stopped being a follower. He took his Wing Chun dummies and threw them out. He stopped practicing the rigid forms of the past. He began to study everything: boxing, fencing, wrestling, even dancing. He took a notebook and wrote down a new philosophy: absorb what is useful, discard what is useless, and add what is specifically your own. He created a style with no style. He called it Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. It was lean, fast, and brutal. It was designed for one thing only: survival. The Oakland fight transformed him from a street punk into a philosopher. It gave birth to the legend we know today. Without Wong Jack Man, there would be no Enter the Dragon. There would be no Be Water, my friend. But there is a darker footnote to this transformation. While Bruce was busy reinventing combat, whispers in Chinatown persisted. The elders weren't angry anymore. They were quiet, too quiet. Rumor had it that during that chaotic, messy fight in the locked room, Wong Jack Man had landed one specific strike, a strike that Bruce didn't feel in the heat of the moment, a strike that wasn't designed to hurt him then, but to stop him later. Bruce Lee began to suffer from mysterious back pains shortly after 1964. He started taking painkillers. Was it just the result of extreme training, or was it the delayed fuse of a much older weapon? As we approach the end of our investigation, we have to ask the final terrifying question. Did the fight really end in 1964, or did Bruce Lee actually lose the match 9 years later on that fateful night in 1973? 1973. 9 years after the locked door match in Oakland. Bruce Lee is dead at 32. The official cause: cerebral edema, swelling of the brain caused by an allergic reaction to a headache pill. To the Western world, it was a tragic medical anomaly, but to the masters in Chinatown, it was something else entirely. It was karma. Immediately after his death, a specific theory began to spread through the martial arts underground. It centered on a legendary Shaolin technique known as the Vibrating Palm, dim mak. The theory is terrifying in its simplicity. It is said that a true master can strike a specific meridian point on the body, not to break a bone, but to disrupt the internal energy flow, qi. The damage isn't instant, it's a slow-acting poison, a time bomb planted inside the nervous system. According to this theory, Wong Jack Man landed this strike during the chaos of the Oakland fight. He didn't want to kill the young Bruce Lee instantly and become a murderer. He wanted to mark him, to put an expiration date on the dragon. Is this just a myth, a fairy tale to scare disrespectful students? Maybe, but look at the timeline. Before 1964, Bruce Lee was physically perfect, unstoppable. After the fight, his body began to betray him. In 1970, 6 years after the duel, Lee suffered a catastrophic back injury during a routine good morning exercise. Doctors told him he would never kick again. He spent 6 months in bed, paralyzed by pain. Was this just an exercise accident, or was it the internal damage finally surfacing, weakening his spine? Then came the headaches, the fainting spells, the collapse in the dubbing studio in May 1973, and finally, the swelling of the brain in July. Dim mak theorists argue that the strike disrupts the body's ability to regulate fluids, leading exactly to swelling. We will never know the absolute truth. The only 2 men who knew what really happened in that locked room took their secrets to the grave. Bruce Lee died young, leaving behind a legacy that changed the world. Wong Jack Man vanished into obscurity, teaching quietly in San Francisco for decades, refusing to speak about the fight until his final years. But there is one haunting detail. After the fight in 1964, Wong Jack Man allegedly told a friend, "I hit him. It is done. He has a few years left to find peace." Did he really say that, or is it just another layer of the legend? One thing is certain, the fight in Oakland was the turning point. It killed the arrogant street punk and gave birth to the philosopher. It forced Bruce Lee to evolve, to create Jeet Kune Do, and to become the icon we love today. In a way, that fight didn't just cause his death, it created his immortality. Bruce Lee fought against tradition, he fought against limits, he fought against the world. He won every battle, but perhaps, just perhaps, the war had a price he didn't expect to pay.